Tom here from Metalloud, and I'm here to review the new album from the Devil Wears Prada called Transit Blues.
I wanna get lost in you, Tokyo.
The Devil Wears Prada are one of the bands that I really never liked originally, and then they released an album called the Zombie EP, and I started really getting into them. It was heavy, it was aggressive, it was interesting, it told a tale, and I loved everything about it. And they released then a follow-up album called Dead Throne, and it's probably one of my favorite albums of all time. I really consider it almost a perfect album, just everything that they brought to the table with that, the ambient electronic work, the almost post-rock guitar work at times, the aggressiveness, the heaviness of that album, and it was just so great. And then they followed it up with another album called 818, which was, I think, really kind of underrated. It really flew under my radar, and I listened to a couple songs and I didn't really enjoy it that much, but I went back to it and I liked that album more. It's not fantastic. It's not anything that's going to get me, riled up about, but it's still a great album. I think they did a good job on that. And then they came out with the Space EP, which I reviewed last year, and I enjoyed that as well, but it really kind of hasn't held up over time. A lot of the songs, a lot of the things I didn't like about the songs at that time kind of just gnawed at me, and I don't really think it holds up as well as it could have. It's definitely not anything like the Zombie EP. But again, it did have a lot going for it. It was heavy. It was fairly aggressive. They actually brought a lot of more somber moments to it as well. And also the fact that it did also carry a theme to it, which is something I really enjoy. I think it's hard for bands to kind of keep a cohesive theme going throughout it, even an EP. And they really managed to do that here. Now, here we get Transit Blues, and again, I'm actually blown away by this album. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. They've released the first single called Daughter, and I liked it. It really gave me vibes of Dead Throne, but a little bit softer. Definitely not a soft song, but not quite as outwardly aggressive as anything on Dead Throne. And I really thought it was a great song. It was really just kind of really dark and kind of brutal. I mean, one of the lines from that song, "Over a lifetime, I never loved her, my daughter." I mean, it's kind of a depressing song to listen to, and it's something that really kind of drew me into it. Then they released another track, and I really did not like that song at all. It was too much of his screaming, and it's really off-putting at times to have that just carry a song. I mean, there were some brilliant moments in that song, but not really anything that I really was drawn to. Then I took an actual listen to the album, and right off the bat, I mean, I was just hooked onto this album. The first song is just absolutely fantastic. It really brings you in, and it's so heavy. There's so much riffage going on that track that you're going to be hooked right away if that's what you're looking for. It comes right out of the gate, just heavy and hard, and it's not quite as dark as anything on Dead Throne, but it's still kind of fairly grim to listen to, and that kind of represents this album as a whole. There's kind of this depressing sense throughout this entire album. It really feels like you're kind of on the road or traveling, and I think that's what they were going for based on the title Transit Blues. And it really is that feeling that you get from the lyrical content, again, the ambient electronic work that's present throughout here, the guitar work that's out here, the vocal work that's on here. They've really kind of come together and combined to give you a feeling that I think that they intended, and I think they're one of the bands that really does that well. If they aim to make you feel a certain way or think of a certain thing, a theme or whatever, they do nail that, and they really kind of did on this album as a whole. And there's absolutely some fantastic tracks on here. My favorite track is Worldwide, which probably one of my favorite songs that they've ever done since Dead Throne. The song Dead Throne off of the album. And it's so interesting to listen to. It's probably the most complex song that they've ever written as well. I really, it starts off kind of slow and it just builds up this momentum, and it comes off almost as catchy, and I don't want to say poppy, but almost borderline like that. It's still super heavy at the same time, and they really do a great job at blending all those things together. They never gets offensively heavy. It never gets off-putting, but yet it still never alienates you if you're into that heavy sound that they've kind of honed over time. It kind of harkens back to their earlier days where they kind of explored that a little bit, but never really polished it up. And here it's definitely been polished, and they did a great job with it. And it's another song on there called The Condition, which also kind of follows a similar suit, where it just starts off with ambient electronics and these clean vocals, which also have seen a drastic improvement with a new backing vocalist here. And then it just burst in with the screaming and the heavy guitar work and the blast beats and everything. And they did a great job on that song, on this album as a whole together. That's not saying that this album is perfect or absolutely, again, it's not a perfect album. It definitely has some things that are a little bit off-putting, particularly with the screaming, where his screaming is kind of hit or miss at times. His transitions aren't that great, and a lot of times if the songs rely too much on that to bring a sense of heaviness to it, and it just doesn't work sometimes. And then also there's this one song called Home for Grave Part 2, which does not work at all. It's almost a spoken word type track, and it's weird in a bad way. It doesn't work for them. It's not part of their comfort zone, and I can appreciate them trying to do something a little bit different than what you might be used to, but it just did not work on this album. But overall, Transit Blues really kind of reinvigorates this band. It really kind of is something you should check out. If you ignored 818, if you ignored even the last Space EP, or even that little EP they did for Record Day, if you have ignored them since Dead Throne or before that, definitely check this out. It brings back and polishes a lot of the style that they had in their earlier days, and then also combines it with the heavier and the darker sound that they progressed with Dead Throne and beyond.